Well, folks, we are only 3 weeks into President Donald Trump's second administration, and so far they are moving at the speed of light, inundating the Democrats and the legacy media, absolutely inundating them. They've been shell-shocked by what's happened. The Trump administration, they have sent a tsunami of executive orders into motion, and the Democrats, they've been totally caught flat-footed. Now, before we get into this, a little self-promotion here, if you're new here, drop down below, hit that subscribe button to make sure you never miss another video from us, and hit that notification bell as well while you're at it. Well, here's the thing. Trump been moving at the speed of light. They've been signing basically tens of executive orders every day. Now, he signed a lot right at first, and so you could average it out, but these first 3 weeks, he has just been moving at the speed of light, and we are going to be giving you an update every 2 to 3 weeks on the Trump administration and what's going on. You know, we're going to try and give you an update, the big things that have gone on. And so we'll start it off right here. President Trump, gender ideology. This is the first thing we're going to talk about. We're going to cover gender ideology, the Middle East, immigration, trade. That's what we're going to be covering today. I feel like those encapsulate the biggest things that Trump has done during his first 3 weeks as president. Now, first of all, let's just start. The gender ideology. Trump signed a number of executive orders, but the most notable one is that the United States will not support or fund child mutilation. They're going to revoke funding from any institution that follows through with this. Now, obviously, the big case was in New York, where you had, I think it was the Langone hospital system in New York had canceled a number of appointments. And I think it was specifically for two 12-year-olds who were supposed to get an implant in their arm that would administer chemicals, basically puberty blockers, that could irreversibly harm that child, this 12-year-old, for the rest of their life. President Trump signed this executive order within days, probably within a day. Most of these child mutilation, chemical and surgical mutilation surgeries and processes were halted. Absolutely halted. They had found out that this hospital system got over $800 million in federal grants that could disappear if they continue on with this. And of course, the Democrats were completely outraged. They were protesting in the street. It was just sick. Sick that you're protesting gender mutilation. And then they're not protesting against it. They're protesting for the gender mutilation. Absolutely sick what's going on. Let's see if there's anything else in here. A number of hospitals had pumped the brakes on this. Oh, and Trump also signed an executive order banning trans-identifying males in female sports. He said he's going to pull federal funds if they allow it. And the NCAA fell in line immediately. Now, there have been a couple states that have come out and said they're not going to follow it. For example, Minnesota, their high school, the entity that governs the high school leagues in Minnesota already came out and said they're not going to fall in line. They're going to follow state law and not federal law. California's, they're a similar body, came out and said the same thing. They're not going to follow federal law. They're going to follow the state law, which is ridiculous. We have this thing, U.S. Constitution. There's this thing called the Supremacy Clause. That's not how this works. Now, the next thing that we're going to hit on is the Middle East. President Trump, before he was even in office, was able to negotiate an end to the war, the Hamas-Israel war. Now, we know that Trump was the one because before he was even president, it happened. Because the same deal had been on the table since May of 2024 from the Biden administration. But it wasn't until Trump and his negotiators came in and said, basically, here's the deal. You're either going to take this deal, or this is the best deal you're going to see in a lifetime, because we are going to let Israel absolutely obliterate you. The U.S. under the Biden administration had a tight leash on Israel, a very tight leash. And Trump just said, look, we're going to release the leash. Israel, they're going to come in and they're going to absolutely pummel you. You know, Hamas, without the $300 million investment they got from the United States back in 2014, 2015, $300 million for concrete to build Hamas tunnels under the Obama administration. And then with the United States holding the leash pretty tight on Israel, not letting them really do what they need to do to finish this war out. Without that, Hamas would have already been pummeled. This wouldn't even be a war. And now Trump has also talked about in the Middle East potentially taking a ownership in the Gaza Strip, which I think has got a lot of pushback from a lot of Americans. We know what happened in the Middle East over the last 2 decades. I think people are very hesitant to it. But Trump still that's still a work in progress. We really don't know all the information on that so far. But as of today, there were some hostages that were not released by Hamas. Hamas did not release some of these hostages. And Trump basically told them today, you know what? We're going to bring them hell. If Hamas isn't going to fall in line and follow through with what they negotiated with too, then we're just going to absolutely have to destroy Hamas and all the Hamas sympathizers. It's ridiculous that we even have to have this conversation. Here's President Trump right here talking about it.
Israel's decision, but
should the ceasefire then be off?
Well, I would say this, and I'm going to let that because that's Israel's decision, but as far as I'm concerned, if all of the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at 12 o'clock, I think it's an appropriate time. I would say cancel it and all bets are off and let hell break out. I'd say they ought to be returned by 12 o'clock on Saturday, and if they're not returned, all of them, not in drips and drabs, not 2 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 2. Saturday at 12 o'clock, and after that, I would say all hell is going to break out.
Should the ceasefire?
All hell is going to break out. Now, initially, Trump was able to negotiate a phased approach to it, but now, obviously, Hamas is not following through. And here's the thing. Under the Biden administration, it would have taken years for a response like this. We wouldn't have even got a response like this. A response, period, would have taken years. They'd go through their diplomatic, bureaucratic processes. They're bullcrap. Isn't it nice to have a president with a pair of balls back? Who's going to say, you know what? All hell's going to break loose. Remember, Hamas is the terrorist. They are the terrorist. Palestinians, they're the ones who supported and elected the terrorist. You don't get special treatment if you're going to negotiate an end and then not follow through with it. So we're going to see what's happen. We're going to see what happens. Saturday's about 5 days away. We've got a little bit to go. But back to it, jumping over to immigration. Trump, on day one, began his long-awaited plans for mass deportation. Now, granted, he set a target for about 1,200 to 1,500 people a day that he is going to be deported. Now, the administration has fallen short most days of hitting that number. I think it's fair to say some people are a little disappointed with. We're happy right off the bat. There were ICE raids happening immediately, but there have been some holdups. There have been some ICE raids that have been leaked, and a number of pushbacks from Democrats in Congress that have caused this to be a little slower. But ultimately, the American people want their cities safe. Trump also had announced that he's going to be using Guantanamo Bay to house criminal illegal aliens until they're able to deport them to their home country, which has received about a 50-50 response from the American people. We're going to see exactly what happens, but every day they're deporting hundreds of people. Obviously, we'd like to see more, thousands of people, but there was immediate action. Trump has also negotiated with Mexico and Canada, which he was able to get 10,000 Mexican troops and 10,000 Canadian troops on each of their respective borders with the United States, and an investment from Canada of $1.2 billion in border security. Mexico is going to do a better job with the flow of fentanyl and making sure that illegal immigrants are not getting into the country. So Trump's been able to get a lot done on the immigration front. Obviously, we still have a lot to see. Trump's going to try and get through Congress a border security bill through the reconciliation process. Obviously, we haven't seen the House GOP's plan on it. The Senate GOP is going to announce some plans this week, apparently. They want to do the two-bill approach, a border security, energy, bill all in one and then a separate tax bill. We're going to see, and the House wants to have all one big, beautiful bill. We're going to have to see how that all plays out. But ultimately, when it comes to immigration, Trump has gotten a lot done. He secured our southern border. Border crossings and border encounters are down like 95%. It's funny. When you don't encourage illegal immigrants to come into the country, they just don't come. They just don't come. And something else that is absolutely wild that they found recently when it comes to, it's not necessarily immigration, but illegal immigration, is that Elon Musk was able to find that there was $59 million just last week. Let's see if we can. This is from 7 hours ago. FEMA official just skipping Trump. They skipped the Trump homes. But yet, they violated Trump's executive order today because they sent $59 million to house illegal immigrants in luxury apartments in New York. Just last week, FEMA sent this money in defiance of President Trump's executive order. Absolutely ridiculous. FEMA needs to be gutted. What institution in the federal government doesn't need to be gutted is the real question. But we've made a lot of progress. Even though the deportations aren't at the level that we want, we have seen a lot of changes on that immigration front. It's nice to have a president with a pair of balls. That's all I got to say on this one. That's going to be a reoccurring theme through a lot of this. Now, the last subject we're going to cover is trade. Trade has been a big one, and it's, some people, Democrats have had a lot of pushback on it. We're going to see what happens. But about 2 weeks ago, Trump signed an order that was going to put 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada within 48 hours. I think maybe it was 72 hours. It was a Saturday to a Tuesday. So let's say 24, 48, about 72, maybe a little less than 72 hours. I kid you not. Within 48 hours, President Trump was able to negotiate a deal temporarily to hold off on the tariffs for 30 days while Mexico and Canada gave some initial concessions to the United States, and then they're going to take 30 days to discuss a broader border security. Obviously, Trump put these tariffs in place because he wanted stronger borders. He didn't want fentanyl to be getting into the United States through Canada or Mexico. He did not want illegal immigrants to come into the country through Canada or Mexico. Both had put 10,000 troops on their respective border with the United States and are going to invest heavily in border security. Heavily. Trump's tariffs were able to bring them to the negotiating table. We're going to see how it plays out because the tariffs were just a 30-day pause so they can negotiate a better border security deal with them. But we're going to see how that all plays out. And the Democrats flailed and whined and complained. Oh, this is, you're violating the free trade. It's funny. They call it free trade when America doesn't tariff other countries, but when Canada has a 250% tariff on American dairy products, why aren't they calling Canada out for disrupting free trade? Canada has a 100% tariff on our tobacco products. Why aren't they calling them out for violating free trade? Because as always, everything the Democrats do, there's no substance behind it. It's all a theatrical performance. It's all a theatrical. Just like the representative from Michigan, the state rep, who neutered herself because she didn't want to have a child during Trump's administration. She didn't want her access to reproductive health care to be violated during Trump's administration. But it's just all theatrics. You know why? Because in Michigan, you can have an abortion the day before your due date. You can have an abortion 20 minutes before you are about to give birth. It's sick that it's allowed, but it's allowed in Michigan. Trump, all he did when Roe v. Wade was overturned was give the rights back to the states. Give it back to the states. But just like everything the Democrats do, it's all theatrics. Now, back to trade. Trump also implemented a 10% tariff on China. China did respond a couple days later with a 10% tariff on basically all American goods. Trump says he's implemented these tariffs with China because China is allowing fentanyl to be manufactured in China and shipped into the United States, and China is not doing enough to stop this. Fentanyl is killing 200 to 300 people per day in America. Trump is really trying to go after this issue. This is an 80-20 issue. That's been a reoccurring theme of the Trump administration, going after 80-20 issues. Gender mutilation or child mutilation, 80-20 issue. Trans men in girls' bathrooms. Trans men in women's sports, 80-20 issue. Deploying troops to the border, 80-20 issue. Trump just keeps choosing the 80% on these 80-20 issues, and he just keeps winning. He just keeps winning. Now, Trump's going to implement these tariffs with China. Obviously, we don't want these tariffs, but also, here's the thing. If China's going to rip us off and they're going to try and kill the people in the United States, maybe we should reconsider where we're getting our goods from. China is the largest trading partner, but also they have the largest trade deficit of any country. So if China's willing to buy more products, we're going to see what happens. Those tariffs did go into place, but we're just going to have to see what happens. Trump has spoke with President Xi on the phone, I believe 2 or 3 times now. And there's just a lot that's going to have to develop with this from China. Now, Trump put tariffs on China in his first administration. Biden kind of doubled down on some of those tariffs and added some additional specialized targeted tariffs on China. And, to be honest, I would like free trade with China, but if China's going to rip off everything America does and then they're going to try and make fentanyl and ship it into the United States, maybe we shouldn't be doing as close a business with them if they're just going to try and kill American citizens with this poison. It's just ridiculous. But that's our update for the first 3 weeks on the Trump administration. Let me know, what are your thoughts? What are your highs and lows on the Trump administration so far? Do you like that he's choosing the 80 on these 80-20 issues? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And as always, like, share, subscribe, and until next time.